Good afternoon, ladies. So lovely to see all your spring dresses and outfits. So nice to have the warm weather. What a glorious day it's been. Yay for summer. Who's the summer lovers? Few hands. And who's grieving the loss of winter? Few hands, okay. Well, we've had a pretty mild winter, really. We've been very blessed. Well, I think that's blessed. I haven't had to wear my gloves once. So that's a pretty mild winter. Well, it's so wonderful you have joined us for our Women's Wellbeing Afternoon. And we hope you find it encouraging, perhaps a little challenging, but overall inspiring in your wellbeing journey through life. Our guest speaker is Heather McAlpine, and she will share with us her knowledge and experience of her own journey of wellbeing. In fact, she is the published co-author of the international best-selling book, Elevate Your Wellbeing, which will be available for you to purchase later on. Heather's chapter, Freedom Through Forgiveness, builds on the power of apology, a popular 2-day seminar that Heather runs. Half the proceeds from the sale of the books go to the Breast Cancer Network Australia. So after we hear from Heather, we will enjoy afternoon tea together with a selection of homemade slices, nothing better than homemade slices, tea and coffee. And if you need to use the bathroom, well, they're to my right through those doors. And because there are no men here, if you get desperate and the ladies are already busy, just go into the men's, okay? Well, let me tell you a little bit more about Heather. Heather is a relationship therapist, educator, supervisor, and author. She has presented at many state, national, and international conferences on reconciliation in relationships, the power of apology, forgiveness, and the adventure of marriage. Heather is passionate about empowering others to discover and unleash their full potential and to create great relationships. She is the recipient of a Winston Churchill Fellowship, rewarding Australians striving for excellence, which took her to the US and UK to study new advances in relationship education. Heather is the chairwoman for Better Marriages Australia, a voluntary organisation that invests into making good marriages even better. She and her husband John are the trainer couple for Better Marriages Australia. And together with John, Heather has been leading marriage enrichment retreats and seminars over the past 38 years, both in Australia as well as India, Sri Lanka, South Africa and Uganda. Just last weekend, they were keynote speakers at the Better Marriage Australia conference in Sydney, where they spoke on growing your marriage through the stage of life. A number of years ago, my husband Mark and I attended one of their marriage weekends at Peppers in the Southern Highlands. What I recall from the weekend is Heather sharing her reaction to seeing John stack the dishwasher. Let's just say John stacked the dishwasher a lot after that. Heather has had a particular interest in wellbeing since she was diagnosed with breast cancer over 10 years ago. She took up dragon boat racing to assist with her recovery, and it has taken her to various places in Australia and overseas for competition. In 2018, she participated in the International Breast Cancer Survivor Dragon Boat Festival held in Florence, Italy. Heather suffers from chronic fatigue. Prior to her chronic fatigue, she enjoyed long-distance cycling, 650 kilometres of cycling from Sydney to Mount Kosciuszko, raising funds for the Breast Cancer Support Network. She says, or so I'm told, sustained by chocolate. And now she enjoys shorter cycles, still sustained by dark chocolate. Through the complexities of COVID, she ran 79 Facebook podcasts titled Elevate your wellbeing contagious care to support the community in their mental, emotional and relational wellbeing. Overcoming adversity, the love of family and joy from her faith in God have been three overarching themes in her life. Heather and John have 3 adult children and delight in their 3 grandchildren. Along with dragon boating and cycling, Heather also enjoys kayaking, bushwalking, skiing, climbing trees, and whitewater rafting down a 7-metre drop. That's the ones I know of. Her husband recently described her as someone who exudes life, enthusiasm, and reflects God's love to those around her. Please join with me in welcoming Heather.
Well, I can't quite believe it. I have never had anybody introduce me who's done so much unbelievable research on me. Goodness me, what Google shows. Well done, Jo. You're a beautiful woman and very researched woman, I must say. Just put that down. It's so lovely to be here. It just warms my heart coming back here. John and I used to come here to church, and it's just so nice. Although we worship in Kiama now because we live at Minamara, it's just so lovely to be back and see many new faces, but beautiful old faces as well. Not old as in elderly, but just from a long time ago. Well, wellness through the journey of life. We are barraged with, there you go, I don't know what that is. Oh, that must be the notices for Sunday. Sorry. We're barraged, aren't we, with so many magazines, so many stuff on social media that tells us how to create our well-being. You know, this is glow, the beauty issue, yoga for a broken heart. Have any of you heard of yoga for a broken heart? I believe in yoga, stretching's so important, but for a broken heart, you know, the things you can find out through all the barrage of stuff. And love your gallbladder. What do you think of that? So, well-being for women through the stages of life. The common theme in wellness I have found is, amidst all the barrage going from, you know, vitamins, from gut health to colon therapy, from neuroscience to ice baths, which I'm a total believer in. I've only had one, but I do swim in Minmara River in the middle of winter to help with my chronic fatigue, and it just does wonders, as well as cold showers. So I'm not being sarcastic about neuroscience and ice baths. They are brilliant. And also colon therapy and gut health. No, anything I've said there, vitamins, exercise, it's all brilliant. We need to find out what works for us. And we're all different. We're all made differently. So the individual finding out what works for you is key. The common theme to all the aspects of wellness that I've found, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, or relational, is our mindset and our ability to make change and, more importantly, maintain change. When I had the privilege of being awarded that Churchill Fellowship to research internationally with the gurus in the relationship wellness field, during that time I discovered that there were 3 core problems that get in the way of people elevating their general wellness. Number 1, a lack of clarity in relation to our values and our purpose in life. Number 2, a general reluctance and fear, sadly, to make decisions to put new healthy habits of nutrition and fitness and mindset and ways of relating into action. That is, not being intentional, not choosing to be intentional. And the third one I found was really key also, is a stuckness in important relationships. due to unresolved wounds from the past intervening in the present. And when you work out how to overcome these three problems, here's what will happen. You'll identify your values and start living in alignment to them. You'll live a life by design rather than by default. And you'll feel and be stronger to manage the stresses that we all go through, right? Who doesn't? By developing healthy habits for our mind and our body that will help us get through. So who of you right here know your three highest values? Anyone? Does anybody know? Raise your hand. No? Well, I encourage... Good on you. I'm going to give you a CD. Tell us what your three high values are. Highest.
God and my family and others.
Beautiful. My daughter's doing a great job there, just giving... This is to encourage interaction, okay? Because interaction is a part of well-being, and that's just a CD if you have a car that still has a CD player, but I'm sure you'll find one somewhere, just on how do we make up in relationships that are really important to keep pursuing. Yeah, I encourage you all, one person, new, off the top, how many are here? About 60? 50? One out of our whole group today knows about their values. I'm guessing that some of you would know your three highest values, but you might be a bit shy to start with. Okay, I'm gonna knock that out of you by the end of this talk. Okay. How loyal are you to live by your values? How loyal are you to live authentically? The book that Joe mentioned, there's a couple of chapters that just nail it on how to do that. It's quite ironic that with me speaking on wellness today, I have the worst eye allergy I could have imagined. I've had it for almost 2 weeks now. Yet what better way to use my mantra that I've had since I was a late teenager? And my mantra is, it's what's on the inside that counts. So it doesn't matter if I look like my eyes are going to droop and go to sleep. Just make sure you wake me up if it happens. But it's what's on the inside that counts, right? I had a reality check at my 60th birthday, which was a few years ago. And I had recently released the book that I co-authored, Elevate Your Wellbeing. And one of my daughters, they're both cheeky, but one of them talked about my new book, and she called it Elevate Your Old Age, not Elevate Your Wellbeing at all. And she came up with this promotional picture to go with it. Okay, that was the picture, but she came up with this. Added 20 years on to my age and did that. Quite startling, isn't it, to imagine how we might look in 20 years' time? But what a great opportunity to reflect on what you're doing now, to live intentionally, to enhance all aspects of your well-being. Some of us are good at enhancing some, but not all. And that is a problem also. So let's hope each of us can raise a cheeky, life-affirming grin as we age. Who knows the leading cause of disease on this planet? Yes? It's close, but it's not actually researched as the number one. But thank you for trying. Stress. Yes, yeah. Melinda, it's the lovely lady down there in the green. Who said stress? Yep, that's right. Yep. Oh. All right. Whoever. Let's fight over it, girls. Oh dear. So, if you were with me 14 years ago, I'd returned home from a beautiful evening celebrating... Yeah, that's what it does to us, right? It unravels us completely and we think, well, who are we? Like, what's going on here? I'd returned home from a beautiful evening celebrating our son's end-of-school dinner, feeling honoured to have given the speech on behalf of all parents. And in the shower, I was doing my routine breast check, and I found a lump. 6 days later, I was diagnosed with grade 3 aggressive breast cancer. Now, this is a personal question. You don't have to answer it. But for those of you who've ever had a life-threatening or serious illness, can you think back to the year prior leading up to the diagnosis? Did you have exceeding amounts of stress in your life? I see a lot of nods. I sure did too. My worst year of intense stress, coming from a number of different directions. It's interesting, isn't it? Cancer and other illnesses can happen for many reasons. Some known and some unknown. And for others, it can be completely random. My diagnosis later down the track made me reflect on a few questions. How well equipped am I at retaining my wellness through a crisis? Can I prevent at least some of the stresses that I do experience? Do I have wellness daily habits as a pattern of my life? This begs the question, how can we as women develop and maintain our wellness through the seasons of life when so many curveballs and interruptions get in our way? Now, I don't know about you, but I love cruise control. Push a switch, the car does the rest. One member of my marriage to John struggles with using it because the journey seems to take so much longer. I own it. You thought it was John, didn't you? She felt quite at home on a recent holiday in France where the speed limit was up to 130 kilometres an hour. On the freeway, of course, but that's what they do in France. One problem with setting and forgetting is just that. We set and we forget. Imagine travelling from Kiama to Sydney with the cruise control set to 100 kilometres, up hills, around corners, the Gerringong bends, my goodness. It had been an adventurous trip, but short-lived. Driving on autopilot with driver fatigue, the quietness and boredom sets in and drivers nod off. This is the problem when we use autopilot in our health, our relationships and our whole life. We get complacent. We can even become bored and just go through the motions. Who can relate to that in different aspects of your health? Yeah, good on you. Thanks for being honest. Being in such a relaxed comfort, if there anyone who didn't put their hand up who could not have, then you should be up here giving this talk and I'll gladly exchange. Being in such a relaxed, comfortable state when suddenly a problem arises, be it an illness, curveball, an unexpected loss, a cumulative stress, potholes, corrugations, we can all be slow to react. So never get too comfortable that you don't stay alert to any obstacle. They may hit you by surprise, or they may be more subtle and creep in insidiously whilst you're unaware of the eroding impact. Indeed, we have a comfort zone, each of us, risk-free, predictable, safe and secure. Our comfort zone is full of things that we enjoy doing and usually do. And we have a courage zone, the outer circle, with things we're afraid of or have never tried. Unexplored, risky territory with opportunities for us to be brave and have an adventure. I want to acknowledge our needs in different seasons of our life can be incredibly different. And depending on what curveballs are thrown our way, our needs can be constantly changing. But what do you think happens if you stay in your comfort zone all the time? Anyone?
Boring.
Very boring. You get bored and complacent, and what happens then? Pardon?
Stop bothering.
You stop bothering, and what's the result of stop bothering? You don't grow. Good on you, Ronwin. Can you give a CD to Ronwin? I just wanted to dig deeper there. You were talking about the symptoms, which was great, but the end result is we do not grow. We become stagnant. Look at this skeleton. This is a tangible example of what happens to us if we get stuck in our comfort zone, and we all do at different times when we could be reaching out of our comfort zone. You're left with the bare bones of your health and your significant relationships without chances to grow, to develop, and to strengthen. Life lived in the comfort zone leads you to waste away. If you don't exercise your muscles, fairly quickly you'll go from Miss Universe to Miss Puniverse. But what happens if you stay in your courage zone all the time? Some of you women may be more familiar with staying in your courage zone, and what happens there? Exhaustion, burnout, okay? It could be exhilarating, but it can be stressful and tiring, and you don't want to run the risk of being burnt out or feeling somewhat battered and bruised like this bear. As women, we particularly need to be on the lookout for burnout, as the majority of us find it really, really hard to say that all-important word, no. Oh, I wish I could give you all a free CD. You got it, girls. We know it, don't we? And can I say, this isn't the theme of my talk today, but I just want to say it in one sentence. Often the reason is in not being able to say no, it comes from a feeling of insignificance. Not always, but commonly. So can I encourage you to just address that if that's part of the equation for you? Your self-worth in being so busy, feeling important, feeling significant, because then we can't be, as a bruised up teddy bear, we can't even hug the people that we love. We can't be there for the ones that we need to be. So think about that. I see parents in this room, and I see grandparents, and we need to be there and look after ourselves for the ones who love us the most and we love the most. Sometimes, with our mental and emotional and physical health, we have to be able to transition back from the courage to the comfort zone to recharge our batteries, to reflect on our life vision. This is what's important about the comfort zone. Sorry, not up to there. To reflect on our life vision and to reassess our goals, perhaps to seek spiritual renewal and strength, to enjoy where we are and where we're heading, to take time out. I have a friend who takes time out on her own for a weekend every 2 months to reassess her goals. So she does it 6 times a year. She's a younger person than me, but I would call her one of my mentors. We're both mentors for each other, actually. And that's what she does, takes time out to be in her comfort zone, going away on her own. So it's important what we can do to find how we can venture into that comfort zone when we need to then venture out again into the adventure of the unknown. Sometimes we all get so afraid of the vulnerability in going, particularly from the comfort to the courage zone, that we actually stop trying or doing anything that we're not already good at. So if we're not feeling already comfortable, we're not doing it. Here's what's hard and I think scary, particularly for women our age. I'm talking about in the 60s and 70s. When we give up doing new things or moving into new territory and feeling awkward, we stop growing, and when we stop growing, we stop living. Neuroplasticity is the name of the game, how the brain changes itself. I love Bob Dylan's line, if you ain't busy living, you're busy dying. When we stop growing, we start declining. There is no neutral here. If you stop growing, your brain, your body, your cells, everything starts declining. Sadly, as I said, it's particularly as we get into the 60s and 70s. So can I invite you to get comfortable, no matter what age you are, with the uncomfortable? Comfortable with what? The uncomfortable. Embrace the uncomfortable into your life. When we no longer feel that discomfort of being new, of being an awkward learner, things start to shut down inside of us. The discomfort of doing new things is our lifeblood. Just going to share a brief story. When I was 9 years old, it was vital for me to take a huge step. I learnt this the first time at 9. A huge step out of my comfort zone. If you're with me back then, I was an extremely shy little girl. Now, I know many of you won't believe that, but it's true. Mum said I was embarrassingly shy. We'd moved from Tasmania to Sydney in an awkward part of the school year, August. I didn't understand any of the curriculum because, with all due respect to Taswegians, the Tasmanian curriculum was a year behind the New South Wales system. So, there I was, not understanding anything, but worse, for me as a little 9-year-old, I had to wear this daggy tartan skirt for 6 weeks because the school uniform was out of stock. If you could picture me in that playground, a timid little thing, nobody reaching out to me, feeling so isolated. I just wanted a shell to crawl up in. This shy, awkward demeanour went on for months. Then one day, which I'm so thankful for, there was a moment when it was just all too much. An epiphany just dropped into my head in that playground. Heather, you can't keep being shy. It's just not working for you. Try something else. I didn't have parents that I could really talk to about this. They were, just in their own space at that time. But I remember this feeling in the playground as if it was yesterday. I sheepishly walked up with a very sick feeling in my stomach to a girl and asked, "Can I play with you?" Her name was Rena Leviticus. We became best friends for the whole of the rest of our primary school days. She had recently migrated from Yugoslavia, and it was just the best thing that happened to me and to her, actually. So there are times when we just have to speak another voice into our head. Listen to your mind chatter. Speak a positive, constructive voice into your head. Heather, just do it. You've got this. Back yourself up. Be your own cheerleader if there's nobody else. And even if there is somebody else, if you're lucky to have somebody else, be your own cheerleader anyway. Normalising discomfort, learning how to stay standing in the midst of feeling unsure and uncertain, that is the foundation of courage, says Brené Brown, and she's well worth a good read. Knowing that we have the strength to survive and come out on the other side of something that makes us feel vulnerable. If we come out with new ideas, and we will, new ideas, new decisions, new choices, new habits, that's how we get braver with our lives and with our health. But you might ask, how can we do that? I'm going to suggest just start, one step at a time. What will you take action on today? I ask myself that about each week. What will I take action on today? Because life does reward action. There's such a thing called the 5-second rule. Who's heard of it? It's not, might I say, giving yourself permission to eat what's dropped on the floor. Who's heard of another 5-second rule? Anyone? Yeah, obviously my daughter. Okay, did you, Brom, put your hand up? You've heard of the other 5? Mel Robbins, great. If you could pass the CD on to Brom. I'm just going to be random here and say, this is an old school friend of mine from high school days. and we used to, and then we went to uni together and used to swim before uni. Another good thing, exercise, start the day in the morning. Okay, and I haven't seen Bron for quite a few years, so it's so lovely. Random, sorry. When you have an inspired thought about the 5-second rule, it's originated by Mel Robbins. A random thought is not counted. It's got to be an inspired thought, okay? There's a huge distinction here. When you have an inspired thought, a wise thought, just do it. You see, there's only a 5-second window between that inspired thought and procrastination. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. Okay? I do that every morning I get out of bed. With chronic fatigue, I have to. Okay? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Because you see, it's only 5 seconds before your brain convinces you not to do it. It's a mantra for action which says, the moment you have an instinct to act on a goal, you count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and physically blast off, take that step, move towards achieving it before your brain stops you. Now, I use it also, besides getting out of bed, I use it every day when I go to the pantry. And I know I don't need that biscuit. I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's 2 steps from the pantry to the fridge, and I get out the hummus and the carrot sticks that I've already prepared. Okay, that's how I can get away with having dark chocolate. We need some treats as well. Don't get me wrong. I'm not OCD about this at all. Okay, I'm not pedantic about it. But it's the habits that are really important here. So, I want us to practice right now. We're going to do some exercise. We're just going to stand up and walk on the spot. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. Yay! Some of you might have found that hard, and I commend you. That's it. Move your arms. Stretch up. It's a hot day. Let's forgive each other for the BO. Okay, let's sit down. Now that wasn't too hard, was it? Take a moment to reflect on what current aspects of your well-being you'd assess as being in the comfort or courage zone. For example, how do you stretch yourself with taking care of your emotional wellness or your mental wellness, or how you might handle conflict, how you might want to manage it better. It might be parenting, it might be work-life balance. I want you to ask yourself the question, with this, moving out of the comfort to the courage circle, what is one part of your health that you would like to move from the comfort to the courage zone? I'm going to ask that you share that one part of your health where you'd like to make a shift with your friend or newfound friend you're sitting next to. But here's the key. I'm only going to give you 1 minute. So in that 1 minute, share for 30 seconds each. You've had time to reflect. It's okay if you can't think of it in the moment, and just listen to your newfound friend, okay? Moving from the comfort to the courage zone. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. seconds left. Okay, well done, girls. Isn't that wonderful? I used to do that in the classroom. It works with older women as well as young girls and boys. Shh. It's great to hear so much chatter. Think about that on your way home. You might like to continue that conversation. Can I encourage you to continue that over afternoon tea? Because it's an empowering conversation to have. You know, I heard of a lady who would regularly visit her elderly relative in a nursing home. At each visit, he offered her almonds from a big bowl by his bedside, and she would help herself. One day she told the nurse how kind and generous he was. "You didn't eat them," said the nurse. The lady replied, "I take a big handful every visit. What's the problem?" The nurse exclaimed, "George has lost his teeth and can't chew. But he loves chocolate almonds. He sucks off the chocolate and gives away the almonds." Many of us can relate to this, yeah? That's what the laughter's about. In times for us where events in our lives have sucked all the sweet, flavoursome parts out of us, the parts that we rejoice in, and they're no longer there because we've burnt ourselves out. Other people might be contributing to that, but it's our choice. Our choice. We need to take responsibility to know that there's other people who can do those things that you might be asked to do. So we don't want just the hard, nutty core left in us. We're now going to look at some ways of getting from the courage zone back into the comfort zone, so we're not looking like little nutty almonds without the chocolate on for the times we feel burnt out and running on empty. You know, it's surprising just how easy it is to improve our health and well-being by what we choose to focus on. If we focus on our problems, what's going to happen? They're going to get bigger. If we focus on the good things that we have and are grateful for, more of them tend to come our way. Focusing on our self-care is a crucial step in elevating our wellness. In order to make self-care a priority, it needs to be ritualised. It's not what we do in a one-off activity, but what we build into our lives as daily habits. Your habitual behaviours are nothing other than actualised neural networks, which is neuroplasticity. If we want to change our habits, we need to first change the way our neurons are wired together. Think of it as a series of roads. Just think of Albion Park back before the days of the freeway. If you want to end up in a different location, you must take different roads to get there. You don't want yourself to be clogged up in those queues at Albion Park before the freeway was built. Okay, we need to take different directions, and here are some simple habits which we can easily build into our daily lives for self-care. Write down 3 things you're grateful for. Every morning or every night, if you find it too much at once, but I do it morning and night. I don't always write it down. I'll verbalise it to John or just say it to myself. The research shows that grateful people experience fewer aches and pains, and they report feeling healthier than other people. That's according to a study published in Personality and Individual Differences. So writing down what you're grateful for, or at least speaking it out, is such a simple practice. Even if you already feel like you're a grateful person, there's something magical about writing it down and reflecting on it every day. And what a wonderful thing to go back to. Number 2, do some simple body weight movements, even for the age of every person in this room. And I can see there's women here with decades and decades of wisdom. Body weights, the lightest weights that you feel comfortable with, or a short walk before or after breakfast, lunch or dinner, or before every shower. Make it a habit, even if it's just a walk around the block or just doing body weights to help our upper body. Our muscles need strengthening, especially if we sit a lot and as we age. You don't need a full-on gym routine for this to stay strong. You might want to just carry weights as you walk. And honestly, girls, you'd do me a great favour if you did this to normalise it, because I look a bit weird walking around the Minamara headland in my locality carrying weights, especially when I'm trying to take the dog at the same time. Just one weight, then I switch over when I've got the dog. Exercise is easier for some more than others, and I want to put that out there. Okay, we've all got different inclinations towards exercise. If you find it really challenging to get moving, choose your favourite form of exercise, whether it be swimming, cycling, walking, or indoors, going to the gym, whatever. Organise a friend to meet you at your front door at a certain time, so that even if you don't feel like doing it, you have an accountability to follow through with your friend. It's funny that I see the friend I used to swim with here in the front row. She used to pick me up at a certain time, and that's what we do before uni, and I didn't want to let her down, so I made a commitment. I also implemented this tip to train for cycling from Sydney to Kosciuszko 6 times, not all in once, like different years, obviously, but as a fundraiser, it truly worked for me to get that friend to come and meet me at my doorstep, because she was better at getting up in the mornings than me. I was the one who had, you know if you've got a problem, and work out how you can rectify it. Another thing is stretching. Stretch, and stretch again. Start your day for 2 minutes before or as soon as you get out of bed with a really good stretch. Who has a dog? What do they do as soon as they've woken up? They stretch. Let's take the wisdom from our dogs. You'll really notice a difference in how good your body and mind will feel doing a few quick stretches. And also, if you're one who has to sit on the computer a lot, do stretches every hour, even half an hour. Every half hour is better still if you can. How many times have you intended to do this and then the whole half day has gone and then you're just really tight, okay, by being in that one position? Some of you may need to set a reminder alarm every half hour. It's worth it, believe me. Another way to get well as a habit is to write a list of the people who bring out the best in you and send an encouraging message to them, to a different person each day. Or if you've got a list of 15 friends, go through it that way. Be ritualistic about it. We all need encouragement. Words of affirmation are such a blessing, hey? Things that stop people from increasing their wellness are they don't invest in it, they're not intentional, and they lack creativity. You think about it, sending a daily encouragement text or voice message is a lovely daily practice that invests in people. It's intentional and creative. It also makes you feel good because you've contributed to making the world a better place in a very simple but powerful way. Another one, spend time daily in nature, getting fresh air and sunshine. It's so easy if we're working to just sit inside all day if we're not intentional about getting out. So when you're planning your day, include even the smallest amount of fresh air and sunshine, even if it's just a short walk at lunch or reading a book outside while you're having lunch. Remember that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 blast-off rule with exercise, with diet. It's so much easier when I do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, instead of grabbing a Tim Tam, to go and get the carrot and hummus instead. I use it also for getting just the impetus to write my next book. So tiny habits can transform us each day. Whatever the habit is that you want to create, start with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, we can't leave relationship wellness out of the equation. Relationship wellness is greatly affected by the habits we choose in order to develop our emotional and mental health. If we haven't taken responsibility, you think about it, if we have not taken responsibility to grow ourselves up, how on earth can our relationships be mature? So let's look at emotional wellness. You can't change your behaviour unless you know what's causing it. If you're angry, look at what's underneath it. What underlying emotions are hidden? We all get angry. Some of us repress it. You may think, oh, I don't get angry, but you may well repress it. Some of us express it in a way where it's explosive, not healthy either, both on opposite ends of the continuum. But there's a beautiful middle section of the continuum where we can express our frustration maturely, express it respectfully by looking at what's underneath and expressing the original feelings. With icebergs, there's 2/3 of them that lie below the surface, right? Sorry, 2/3 of each iceberg, roughly, lies below the surface. 1/3 is seen, the 2/3 underneath is not seen. What do you find commonly might be lying underneath your anger? Sometimes the unseen emotions are what? What would you imagine? What do you find are the unseen emotions? Any clues? Go on, Ray. Frustration is actually with anger. It's almost in between. It's almost on the line of the 2/3 to stepping up into anger. But you think about, I'll just give you, just to save time, I know you really know the answers, you're just shy, hey? There's lots of answers for you in the book there on Wellbeing, but let's look at a volcano. It's another way of looking at it. The molten lava, okay, it's boiling, and all these things underneath our anger are primary feelings. They come first. And there's a multitude, an absolute multitude of primary feelings: abandonment, envy, rejection, worry, being ignored, worthlessness, powerlessness, jealousy, fear, humiliation. The list is endless. Okay, so we want to be able to identify those feelings so that we don't have this explosive reaction of frustration and anger building up, okay? Because it's got to come out somewhere. Identify your primary feelings, because anger and frustration are secondary feelings. They come second. But it happens in such a split second, a millisecond, that we don't realise how much is underneath, okay? So the key, I'm just going to read a bit from the book here to help us understand the key here. You know how we have physical allergies? I talked about mine today. Okay, I could walk past a bush and 100 others could and they wouldn't be affected, but I am. Okay, there's a trigger factor. I'm the susceptible person and the allergy occurs, whether it's wheezing, coughing, sneezing, eyes that won't open up properly, etc. Okay. We also have emotional allergies, all of us. There's a trigger factor, okay? Words that have been said, the tone of voice, the way somebody might just roll their eyes, okay? It's the look, the situation. We may be the susceptible person because of the personality type that we are, or it may have been from our past, from our family of origin, a previous marriage or long-term relationship, whatever it can be from our past, or it can be because we're stressed in the moment. And what happens, there's an emotional allergy that occurs, tears, rage, unloved feelings, guilt, that just comes flooding. Who hasn't asked themselves at a certain time, my God, with somebody, just asked yourself quietly, my gosh, where did that come from? Just today. There you go, okay? So the important thing is to know our own emotional allergies. We have to explore the root cause of them. It's helpful to look in terms of a soul wound, because as an adult, you would understand this. We all filter information as an adult. You may tell yourself, oh, that's garbage. That doesn't make sense. I'm not going to pay any attention to that. But when you were a child, you accepted everything uncritically. And that information becomes stored in your what's called your old brain. And the old brain is often forgotten. You may not be aware of it until a situation arises and you respond with that knee-jerk reaction. Who's been to the doctor and pshing, you've got no control over it. It's like a knee-jerk reaction. And it brings up past hurts and is based on not having our needs met from back then. Okay? For me, it's when I feel not listened to or not advocated for. They're my two emotional allergies. Being aware of your emotional allergy is crucial because it's important we take responsibility to self-soothe, to speak kinder words into our heart and in our mind that we'd longed to hear from, that we'd longed to hear back in our past. See, our parents did the best they could with what they had at the time, the majority. Okay, so this isn't about blame, it's just about acknowledging when that allergy strikes and we're overwhelmed with previous emotions, to identify what's going on. And I just say to myself, if I get that allergy here as an adult, I just say what John says to me often, you've got so much wisdom. And I speak that into my head when I get an emotional allergy from the past of not being advocated for or listened to. It can still hit, but instead of the emotional allergy having the power of Niagara Falls, it just has a tiny little impact, hardly anything that just you know about inside yourself. It's like Minamara Falls in drought season compared to Niagara Falls, okay? So it's really important to acknowledge this because you can't fix what you don't name. So identifying your emotional allergy, owning it and being self-compassionate through it will help you to heal. This prevents ongoing problems in our relationships and also brings quicker healing within our relationships when stuff-ups occur. The research shows that when we carry unresolved wounds from the past, we're more likely to get sick. You would all know of the massive connection between mind and body and spirit. So let's do a little experiment to just add something else that can elevate our wellness. You'll probably only have time for one person to share. So first in with the inspired thought gets to share. I'm only going to give you a minute again. What did you feel? I'm going to ask you to, first of all, share with your partner a time that was the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you or the most fun thing that's ever happened to you. But can I encourage you to go for the most embarrassing thing just to create what I want to create here, okay? Go for it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 10 seconds to go. I hate to break you up. So sorry. Let's come back together. I can see a few in the back being in hysterics. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fantastic. If only everyone in the classroom would do that so quickly. Hey. What did that create? I'd love to hear your most embarrassing moments, maybe over afternoon tea, but what did that create for you with your newfound friend or within the whole room? What did that create? Laughter, yes. Libby? Pardon? Freedom. Think about this. Laughter, freedom. Expression. Yes. What else? A sense of wellness. You got it, girl. This is the last CD. There's many more on the desk, though. Do you know laughter, freedom? What was your one in the pool? Expression, that's right, self-expression, and validating the self-expression with the person that was laughing at your experience. Okay, it also provided connection, fun, and community. All those things. Memory, love it, yes, and then you think, oh, my memory's not so bad. That happened 66 years ago, and I remember it as yesterday. Good on you. So all of these things elevate our wellness and builds resilience. Okay, and the research proves all of that with all those things that were said and what I added to it. Connection and community. Positive emotions enable our brain to broaden out. We have more success then when we have positive emotions. We are more successful in finishing projects, being 31% more productive and 3 times more creative. It's worth investing in what brings you positive emotions. Now I'm going to look at how we can manage our wellness when severe life adversity strikes. I'll share a few tips on this through my own life lessons. Often it's the things we don't want that nevertheless come our way that end up being the most growth-producing and enriching aspects of our lives. Who's found that? I'm not minimising the tragedy. I'm not minimising the trauma or the incredible adversity any one of you may have gone through. But in the end, we look back. We can't feel that in the middle of it, I know. But when we look back, wow, look at how many hands raised then. The hardest part for me through the breast cancer journey 14 years ago was the thought that I may not survive to be alongside my children through their important milestones and to be with them when they needed me. Seeing them graduate, get married, and give birth to their own children, all these scenes flashed before me. Yet then I wrote, now with a haunting uncertainty. Cancer was indeed an uninvited guest in my life, but I knew it was totally up to me as to how I responded to it. And I've had to choose the same attitude with the chronic fatigue I've had more recently. I imagine each of you have had unwelcome guests in your life too. And I'm not talking about the long-lost relatives who say they'll stay for 2 days and end up staying 3 months. I'm referring to having to cope with disabilities or terminal illness, unemployment when you're at your peak, severe rejection or ongoing stuffed up relationships. This was my life lesson. It's not what happens to you that matters in life. It's more how we react to what happens to us. How do we respond to that uninvited guest? You know, through all the confusion and chaos and uncertainty of having a life-threatening illness, I was somehow comforted by God, who had a purpose and a plan for me, even though I had no idea of what it was at the time. He was the one who gave me the courage to walk the unknown path. I'm now filled every day, because it was grade 3 and aggressive. I'm filled with every single day waking up and being grateful for being alive and living in alignment with my values that is so worth identifying, and they can change. So identify them. There's 2 chapters that will help you in that. Also, I was reminded about the beauty. I always knew this because I am a fairly grateful person anyway, but the beauty of giving love to people, friends and family, and feeling the love of my friends and family. You see, life isn't fair. That was Malcolm Fraser who said that, wasn't it? Life is not fair. He was right. Oh, life wasn't meant to be easy, he said. And he was right there. And I'm saying life is not fair either. We know that. If we've lived long enough, we know that. We don't understand it. I don't pretend to. But it still can be good. When I lost all my hair through chemo, I knew it was just a superficial and a temporary thing. And remember my life motto, it's all about what's on the inside that counts. Nevertheless, it was tough. And John united me with the battle by shaving his own head also. And for those of you, you're Gerringong, many of you would know him as a doctor here. You know that not one person would have noticed from his previous hair coverage that he had actually gone to the trouble of shaving so he could have zilch hair with me. The most really encouraging moment was one night when my hair was just falling out all over the pillow. And he whispered to me, I've got this secret, and I've had it for all our marriage. I find bald women really hot. I still hear those words resonating in my heart and my brain continually, because it was the most beautiful thing. He said many beautiful things to me. I'm so lucky to have him. But I think that in that moment and in my life was the most beautiful thing I needed.
You do look hot though.
I have to Thank you. I do have to tell you a secret. I was asked to do Dancing with the Stars. I'll tell you about that later, because I know someone's going to ask me a particular question that they said they wanted to ask, and I'll leave it for then, okay? It's interesting how life, just remind me if I don't get back to it, okay? It's interesting how life, when it seems most secure, it can all of a sudden become unspeakably fragile. And when it's most precarious, it can be yet unspeakably good. I've still got tingles down my spine when I can hear his tone, his words, everything. Saying that, and it was 13 and a half years ago. It can be unspeakably good. We've just got to look for those little treasures in the darkness. Strangely enough, it was a gift for me to become acutely aware that I had little control in my life. Prior to cancer, I persisted with things that I should have let go of. With cancer, everything's dwarfed into comparison, and you'll know that with your own specific huge illnesses, even if it's not cancer, something, some tragedy, something. When we're confronted with our own mortality, the everyday stuff just pales into insignificance. I found it freeing to gain greater clarity around what is really important in life. And this is my challenge to you today. Ask yourself, what is really important? Each of us have a story, and often our struggles are weaved up with our joys. Times of struggle can be a real wake-up call, a time of reassessing where we're heading. So often, we're just lazing around in our comfort zones. We think, I've got it covered. I'm self-sufficient. But then a life event happens and we wonder, is there more? Is there any more to life than just this? The whole cancer treatment journey for me as I faced my own mortality was a reminder of how short this earthly life is and how important my spiritual wellness is. For respite, I used to soak in the ocean at Bombo Beach. I had my kids pushing my back up the hill because we lived on a steep hill in Brown Street in Coma, and I couldn't get up the hill, I was so weak. But I always had somebody who would be pushing my back up after I would just soak at Bombo Beach in the ocean, and was constantly reminded that my earthly life was just a grain of sand compared to the whole of Bombo Beach that for me represented eternity. Today you might want to ask yourself, what area of wellness am I lacking in? What specific thing do I want to be intentional about? We have recently had the joy of a new 3-year-old grandchild as our daughter Christine and Ben have fostered little Zara. It brought back fond memories the other day when offering her help. To hear the familiar 3-year-old phrase, I do it myself. We power ahead, setting our own path and being so confident in our own abilities. Yet we have the offer of a helpmate, and he's the creator of the universe. He came to give us life, spiritual wellness, and to give it to us abundantly. Jesus says, here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If you hear my voice and open the door, I will come in. Then he rejoices when we turn to him. My engagement ring, particularly my engagement ring, has gone through many adventures in our 43 years of marriage. Twice I lost the diamond out of it. One time I was at a conference in the Tumut High School hall. We needed to sweep the entire hall, and then John had the job of looking through the bags of dust. I get shocking hay fever. It was very convenient, wasn't it? Anyway, sure enough, we found it. Imagine John's elation and mine going through the dust we just couldn't stop hugging each other. Another time, the diamond was lost. This time, only for me, after a long search, to see the sparkle in the corner of a room on the carpet on the other side of my parents' house. So I was in the kitchen, I saw it across the lounge room that went to the dining room, dining room that went to the lounge room, amazing. This little sparkle that the sun was shining on in that moment. And again, Mum, Dad, John and me, we were all jumping up and down like we were little 5-year-olds. Fast track a couple of decades, only 6 weeks ago, I lost both my wedding and engagement rings. I felt a background of sadness and disappointment for 5 weeks. No matter how much I continued to tell my brain, remember the brain chatter is really important, the self-talk, I said it's just a symbol of love. We've still got each other. Amazingly, just last week, they turned up. I must have put moisturiser on my hands whilst I was at the computer, and they ended up wedged under the printer. I had searched everywhere, even in the fridge. Like, you wouldn't believe. It's quite embarrassing places where, if I told you where I'd searched, but I just so desperately wanted to find them. The joy I shouted out when I discovered them, I could have been heard halfway down the street. I was even busy telling random neighbours as they walked past about my excitement. So I experienced firsthand the joy of finding what was lost but is now found. This is the joy that God experiences when we turn to him. Then we can experience a sense of true and the deepest form of forgiveness. Now, forgiveness is a complex and often very misunderstood thing. One of the biggest misconceptions of forgiveness is that it's an emotion. I'm just going to read from my chapter in the book on this. Many people believe that it's an emotion, so they end up waiting years or even a lifetime until they feel like forgiving. But that day may never come. The act of forgiveness is an unnatural decision. It's not fair. It's a challenging choice that requires grace. Forgiveness can be a costly and complicated decision, and it's a process. Everyone has different leanings on the spectrum. You might be on the mercy side, and others of you might be on the justice side. It is easier for those to forgive who are more leaning on the mercy side. There's no right or wrong about this, but I'm just acknowledging the people who tend to be more justice focused than mercy. It is a hard thing, but it's such an important thing. Because forgiveness gives you freedom. It's interesting that the word forgiving can be broken up into forgiving. 2 words. Isn't that interesting? What's it forgiving? It's forgiving the wrongdoer peace, and more so what they need peace, but what comes before that? Pardon? Love, yes. They need pardon, don't they? Okay, they've done something wrong. So they need pardon. You are giving the wrongdoer a gift by releasing them into the freedom of your forgiveness. And by forgiving, how is that a gift to you? It frees you up, that's right. It releases yourself from the power that the hurt has over you. Okay, that's where it gives you freedom. You no longer carry the power of the hurt. You're releasing yourself from that. And the opposite of this is unresolved bitterness, which is like taking a poison to hurt someone else. How ridiculous is that? Forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. That's really important to know. It doesn't have to establish relationship again if it's been severe, but it enables you to let go of the person's throat. Totally, and to let go of yours. I like that. I love Nelson Mandela. He's been my mentor. He says, forgiveness liberates the soul. It removes all fear. That is why it's such a powerful weapon. Because as we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Our mental, our emotional, our relational, and our physical and our spiritual well-being can be elevated massively if we're courageous and humble enough to accept and give forgiveness. A most powerful story of forgiveness and reconciliation was in a song that came out in 1973, and I know a number of you will know it. Tie a yellow ribbon round the old oak tree. Yeah? Who knows the meaning of that? The meaning behind the song. Yeah. Great. So often we like the song, the tune, but we don't listen to the words. Let's get a hold of this. It's about a man who's been in prison for 3 years and he's about to get out. He's full of shame and guilt at what he did that put him in prison in the first place. He's full of fear that his wife won't have him back. So he writes a letter to his wife and asks, "Do you want me to come home?" In the letter, he tells her his plan. "When I get out of prison, I'll catch the bus and I'll drive by your house. If you want me back, tie a yellow ribbon round the old oak tree. I'll climb off the bus and come home. If you don't want me back, leave the tree empty. I'll ride on and never bother you again." So in the song, he gets out of prison and he climbs on the bus. He's looking for this yellow ribbon around the old oak tree. And as the bus nears the street, he can't bear to look. So he asks the bus driver to look instead. The man rounds the corner with his eyes squeezed shut, and the whole bus erupts in cheers. Remember? He opens his eyes to discover there's not one yellow ribbon around the old oak tree, there's 100 yellow ribbons around that old oak tree. This is an incredible picture of love. But God's love is much greater. Jesus didn't wrap 100 yellow ribbons around the old oak tree to show how much he loves us. He wrapped himself around a tree. Jesus sacrificed his very life so we could be forgiven. We just need to ask him for that forgiveness, to be able to be in relationship with him so we can be accepted and welcomed back home. I'm going to finish with something that happened to me quite a few years back. I was swimming in an indoor heated pool when I swam over a man motionless at the bottom, lying face up with no bubbles coming out of his mouth. Two things went through my mind in that split second. Firstly, remember your CPR, Heather, remember that CPR. Secondly, he was the most stunningly attractive guy I've ever come across. Besides John, of course. Strange what goes through your mind in a crisis. I'm ashamed to say. He knows. So what I did, because he was so stunningly attractive, I thought I can't touch him, but I hurtled him up with my foot to the surface, and as I went to give him the kiss of life, he suddenly called out in surprise. It turned out that he was an Italian opera singer who used to practice holding his breath underwater so he could increase his lung capacity in order to reach the high notes. Who would have known? Here's a guy who's prepared to lie on the bottom of the pool looking like he's drowning in order to reach the high notes in his career. We got free tickets to his opera because of my courage. I know you would have all done the same. But I ask you this as we end. To what extremes do we all go to reach the high notes in our emotional, our mental, our relational, our physical and our spiritual wellness? Can I encourage us all to be courageous this afternoon, to make a decision and take action on what you've been prompted to reflect on today? Remember, be invested in your wellness, be intentional and be courageous.
Wow, I think you've covered every aspect of wellbeing, Heather. Thank you, and so wonderfully. Thank you very much. And really glad you've been here today to share with us your experiences. It's the storytelling, as they say, that reaches the heart of those you are speaking to. So thank you for sharing your stories. Yeah.
Thanks for making us laugh.
Laugh, yes. Laughter is the best medicine. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we're going to have some afternoon tea now, and the ladies are bringing it out up the back. And I just want to check with you though, if you came in, did everyone receive a gift bag? Good. Please do not go without a gift from us, because that's for you. And we'd really like you to stay for afternoon tea. There's plenty, so we do need everybody to stay so we can enjoy those slices together and continue the conversations together. Heather, you started the conversation, and let's continue that with each other, talking to each other, being open with each other about the things we struggle with and some of that emotional allergy. Was that the word? Yeah, emotional allergy. So thank you, Heather. And Melinda, Heather's daughter, will be down the back to help you with the books if you would like to purchase one of the books. So thanks again, Heather. Thank you, ladies, for being here today. Really glad you've been here to join with us in hearing from Heather. Dancing with the Stars. Do that. Dancing with the Stars. Thank you, Gay. Thank you. Good. We want to hear about the Dancing with the Stars. I think I've seen something on the internet about that as well.
You're good with the internet, I tell you what. There was somebody who mentioned, was it Ronwyn, about the question?
What were the distractions that helped you on your cancer journey?
Oh, sorry.
A distraction, yeah. I didn't mention the importance of having healthy distractions. Did I finish? Yeah. Healthy distractions when you're going through stuff. And it just came upon me, this. I don't think I was aware of just the importance of having really good healthy distractions to get through the trauma or adversity you may be going through. But I realised afterwards, by golly, this is a very important wellness thing, and I looked it up, and of course, yes, it's researched. But the distraction for me with Dancing with the Stars, I was just speaking at Gerringong Rotary actually, and a woman there was organising Dancing with the Stars to raise money for an African orphanage. And I can't remember what I was speaking about there, but she just asked me in that Rotary meeting afterwards, would I be interested in being one of the stars? Now, I had just had... She needed 10 stars. So one was the mayor, Sandra McCarthy, a number of different people. Stars in terms of, it was a ridiculous word, actually. Anyone they could grab hold of, probably. Anyway, it was, so we had a partner, and I was the luckiest one. Probably they felt sorry for me because I was completely bald. I'd just had my chemo at the time before this event came on, and it raised, I think, over 40,000 for this African orphanage, and it was held at the Leisure Centre, the Carmen Leisure Centre. And this man was a Latin American full-time dance professional instructor, and they must have felt sorry for me having cancer because they gave me him, and all the other so-called stars had very good professional people dancing, but they might have been the dance instructor from Dance Sensations or whatever, you know. This guy, he sure gave me a healthy, welcome distraction because he did all sorts of things with me and that scared the living daylights out of me. He even said, like, I wanted to wear my wig that my mum kindly gave me, but he said, no, you're not. It was a little argument, actually. He said, you can't wear your wig. You've got to go as you are. And I said, this isn't for cancer research. This is not a fundraiser for that. I'm not looking cancerish. And he said, I think I'll dump you if... He didn't say it that way. I'm trying to be succinct. He said it very politely, but that's what he was saying. if you don't wear a wig. And I said, why is it so important to you? And he said, because if your wig falls off, which it will in my hand, I'll look the bad dance instructor. It was all about him. So I said, I'm not going looking like I am. He said, blonde yourself, girl, blonde yourself. So I did. But it was a very welcome distraction for going through radiation, because I was up at Wollongong Hospital every day for 6 weeks doing that and had to be driven up and back by friends and family, beautiful people. So I wasn't in a great space, but to actually learn how to dance was amazing. And so I encourage you all to choose a healthy, welcome distraction. There's lots of unhealthy distractions, as you would know. Choose one that gives you creativity and life-affirming words and actions.
Did you have energy?
No, very little. The chemo was radiation was a walk in the park compared to the chemo for me. And so I was in the better space doing radiation each day than the chemo. Yeah, the chemo just sapped me. This was through radiation. Yeah.
What are your values today? What are your values?
Good question. Honesty, commitment, and intentionality. Yeah, and connection. I could give you a number. There's 4. My word for the year, I create a word every new year and live by it. And this year it's been availability. And last year it was wholesomeness. Yeah. So, and our son creates a word every year too, and we couldn't believe it. Last year we were both wholesome. He said, you stole from me, and I said, no, you stole from me.
Thank you, Ronwen, for bringing that question up, because I was just totally mesmerised by what you were saying, thinking, okay, what am I going to do with this information that I forgot about, the Dancing with Stars? Thank you. And thanks for sharing that story too, Heather. Look, you just look so... Well, who said she was hot? She looks great, doesn't she?
I was made up.
Still look hot. All right, let's head down the back and for tea and coffee and slices. Thank you for being here.